Music has always been in my periphery. My dad was actually a radio personality in my hometown, so he was kind of this local celebrity, and he ran a hip hop and an R&B station as well as a classic soul station. So I grew up surrounded by that kind of music. Early influences like Prince, Commodores, that kind of music. And my grandfather was a musician as well. So he actually bought me a piano when I was, well, not a piano, like a keyboard when I was 7 years old for Christmas, just not thinking much of it. And it came with a little booklet. And I actually was able to use the booklet to teach myself to read music.
Oh wow.
And my parents saw that and they were like, okay, like maybe we should get her some piano lessons. So I started taking piano lessons, and I took to it. It was just something that I love to do. And I ended up going to a specialist secondary school.
Mm.
So from the age of 14 up until I finished school, so 18, I did half of my day in music classes and half of my day in other subjects. And I also was really interested in psychology. So I took a psychology course,
Huh.
and there was literally one sentence in my textbook that said, there are also creative arts therapies such as music therapy, drama therapy, and I think the other one was art therapy.
Huh.
And when I saw that word music therapy, I was like, ooh, definitely got to look into this. And so I actually found out at the time that the president of the American Music Therapy Association was the head of my local university.
Oh wow. Talk about a
So
confluence of experience.
yeah, exactly. So I immediately like booked a taster day, and I just I was moved to tears. They showed us case studies about what music therapy does. And they showed us a video of I think we've talked about this before, but they showed us a video of a music therapist working with a mom in the neonatal intensive care unit, where she was helping the mom who obviously was separated from her baby because the baby had complex medical needs. And the
Mm.
music therapist was working with the mom to write a lullaby and record this lullaby. Start crying. Record this lullaby and be able to leave it with the baby, leave a speaker with the baby so that the baby could hear the mom's voice. Um, Even though she wasn't there, at least, she was able to do that for her baby, and the baby was able to be around her mother,
Mm.
in that sense. All the way to the other end of the life spectrum of people that have dementia. They might forget the names of every family member,
Mm.
but the way that the brain works, they will still remember their favorite songs when they were in their 20s. They might be somebody who is completely enclosed, and not really aware of their surroundings. But if they hear a song that was important to them when they were young, they will come alive, they will sing,
Mm.
they will dance.
Mm.
It's just magic.
What is going on in the brain when it relates to music? Like how does the brain and music interact? How would you explain that?
So I think on a very basic level, listening to music, making music, and moving to music reduces two neurotransmitters, dopamine and endorphins,
Mm.
which are linked with pleasure and which are linked with improved mood state, right? So
Right.
that's something that kind of applies to everyone. If we're thinking back to that example of the person with dementia, music is a whole brain activity. So you've probably heard before that a lot of the things that we do are processed in the left side of the brain, or they're processed in the right side of the brain. And because music is so complex, it's processed in all of these different areas of the brain. So even if there is a problem with one particular area, because music is processed in so many different parts of the brain, there's still bits of it that'll reside somewhere else.
I guess it's a very unique feature of the world that we actually interact with then as human beings. I'm not sure there's anything else quite like that in terms of like capturing the entire sensory apparatus of the brain, let's say. Would that be right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's where the magic of music lies. Just to give you another example, so I've worked with people with traumatic brain injuries, which can a lot of times affect speech.
Mm.
Um, and there is a very specific type of music therapy called neurologic music therapy that actually is able to take people's unimpaired ability to sing, even when they can't speak, and turn their singing ability back into speech. So I know that's so crazy. There could be a brain injury that's so severe that it leaves somebody without the ability to speak. But again, they can sing a song that they learned well and knew the words from before the accident or before whatever happened to them. So being able to start there and
Mm.
then using a very specific technique to take that sing speech that they're able to, that still remains, and turning that back into regular functional speech.
Oh my God.
So it is, and I know I've worked in this, and it's absolutely incredible. It sounds like magic, and it is magic.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I so, I mean, that is beyond transformative, right? I mean, wow. Wow. And I guess even kind of tapping into, because I mean, one of the things I didn't fully realize is just how incredibly clearly academic this discipline is, and just the extensive learning that's involved in actually becoming proficient in this discipline as well. I mean, what does that learning look like? And also, what does your work look like in practice?
Training is different in different countries. I'm American, and in America, it is a minimum of 4-year degree. So a 4-year degree in music therapy, where you're required to come in proficient on a given instrument. So for me, that's piano. And then you take classes about music therapy, about psychology, about anatomy. And after you complete those 4 years, you have to do a 1,200-hour clinical internship, which is about 6 months, where you're going in full time and working under the supervision of a professional music therapist. Once you complete that rather, then you sit for the board certification exam. And if you pass, then you are certified to practice as a music therapist. And then you have to keep up with your continuing professional development. From there, you can go on and do a master's degree or a PhD. Yeah, and then in the UK, it's a little bit different. It's a master's degree entry point. So you already need to have a bachelor's degree in a related field like psychology or music, and then you have to go in and do a master's degree. And just to signpost people, in the UK, the most prominent music therapy organization and charity is Nordoff Robbins Music Therapy. It's very intense. Yeah, it's not something that just anyone can do. And to be perfectly honest, whenever I see, like a Spotify playlist called music therapy, I'm just like, not quite. Because it does take a lot of dedication, and it takes a lot of energy and time and passion, of course.
Well, I mean, okay, so what does it actually look like in practice, in terms of like seeking to serve or help somebody who needs music therapy? Yeah, I wonder if you can share a few examples what it looks like.
Yeah, so again, this is an interesting question because it is so curated to exactly who you're working with, how old they are, what difficulties they're presenting with, and then what is their own personal musical taste. So I'll give you a couple of examples. So I mostly work with kids with autism and speech delays, and then adults with anxiety and depression and ADHD. So what most music therapists end up doing as they go along in their careers, they kind of specialize to what we would call a population. So a certain group of people that's presenting with a certain set of challenges. So with kids with autism, a lot of times what happens is that their communication and their social abilities are impaired. And I do a lot of work with nonverbal children with autism. So as you probably can imagine, it is a human need to be able to connect with others. And when you're not able to do that with your voice, how do you make that happen? And one of the answers is through making music together. So, I'll have kids come in and we'll play instruments, we'll improvise. I might teach them a song, we might do some humming, and we're interacting together and having this wonderful moment of mutual delight through music that doesn't require language. It doesn't require us to speak. It also gives them an outlet for creative expression. It gives them a bit of autonomy. There might be some teaching. I might just teach them little songs on piano or on guitar. So that's just a little example of some of the stuff I might do with a kid with autism.
Right.
On the other end of the spectrum, when I'm working with adults, we'll do things like lyric analysis, where I either pick a song that I think might kind of mirror what they're telling me is going on in their life, or they might pick a song that they feel really captures what they're experiencing. And we talk about the lyrics, and we talk about how this particular lyric really helps them relate what's going on. It makes them feel seen, makes them feel validated. We also might do songwriting, where they come in, we talk about what's going on, and I might say, what, I think this is something that needs to be expressed. Let's sit down, let's write a song about it. Or another example, I do a lot of singing affirmations. So affirmation practice is something that's quite like, hot topic in the kind of wellness industry right now.
Okay.
And we'll do that idea of what do you need to remind yourself of, saying things like, I am enough, or I don't have to do this on my own.
Mm.
Taking those, adding a melody, and then what happens when you do that is it gets stuck in your head like an earworm. And the more that you practice it and the more that you sing it to yourself, it'll start to come into your head when you need it, which
Wow.
is incredible. It's like your higher self is speaking to you when you're in
Wow.
those kind of more vulnerable moments.
Yeah.
So, and
That's
again, this
awesome.
is just like a tiny drop of the kind of stuff that I do with clients because it's so curated based on specific needs.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a very, very person-centered practice, and yet at the same time, so incredibly comprehensive and cognitive as well. At the same time, it's being very creative. It's
Mm.
art and a science at the same time, would you say?
Yes, you've hit
Yeah.
the nail on the head. Art and science meet. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, what would you say are some of the things that, I don't know if they'd be typical scenarios necessarily, but some of the things that people misunderstand about music therapy or misunderstand about how to use music in their life?
Yeah. So there's no such thing as a playlist that is going to make you feel energized or a playlist that is going to make you feel relaxed. And the reason for that is because each person has a unique history with, memories about, and relationship to music.
Mm.
So, sometimes fast-paced music can make people feel really motivated and energized. And then for other people, it can make them feel anxious. It can be anxiety inducing. So that doesn't work to just say that this playlist will make you feel this way. You've got
Right.
to think about your own personal music style and do a bit of an experiment with how music affects you personally. If we're thinking about work music, for example, some people find lyrics really motivating.
Mm.
Kind of if I'm thinking about Daft Punk randomly, harder, better, faster,
Yeah.
some people are like, yeah, I'm gonna get this done. Other people are like, oh my gosh, those lyrics, that takes me to this rave that I was at a couple of years ago, and now I'm not focused on my work at all right
Mm.
now. So, thinking about how tempo, the speed of music affects you, thinking about how lyrics affect you. Yeah, just kind of thinking about how all of those things come together so that you can then create a playlist that's going to work for a set purpose.
Okay. All right. So that should kind of segs into what I was going to ask about, actually. And I don't know whether you can necessarily distill this in such a simple way, because I recognize this is a very, very deep topic. But if you were trying to give somebody some guidance about how to begin that process of maybe creating a playlist, whether it's going to be around their well-being or whether it's going to be around their work, what would you say they ought to do in terms of approaching that process?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is to get clear on what this playlist is going to do for you. So, I wouldn't have a playlist called work music. What do you need?
Right.
Do you need energy? Do you need to be calm because you're working against a deadline and you're feeling quite anxious about it? What do you need? How do you need the music to make you feel? And then once you've got that, then you can start thinking about you can start, I like to use the word marinating on what kind of songs immediately come up for that. If you're creating a playlist about being energized, what songs immediately come up for you? What songs make you feel energized? And then just, put those in there and then start to think about what I was talking about before. How do the lyrics affect you? How does the speed of the music affect you? How does the instrumentation of the music affect you? And you can even do things like look up acoustic or instrumental versions of certain songs so that those, you've got a little bit less distraction if the lyrics are a problem for you. And then put them in a specific order, starting from maybe the least energetic, and then maybe building up, building up, building up, building up, and then maybe even coming down a little bit more at the end. So it kind of eases you into that mood state, keeps you there for a little while, and then starts to ease back off. The other really amazing thing about creating these playlists is that it creates a certain amount of time for you to work in. So if we're thinking about like our flown deep work sessions, we do 50-minute sessions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we might say, okay, I'm going to create a 50-minute playlist that perfectly matches with this. And as you continue to use the playlist over and over again, your brain is going to start to recognize subconsciously, really, where you are in that process of deep work. You know, your brain's going to be like, oh, you've got 15 minutes, you got, or rather it's going to be thinking, oh, you've got 2 more songs till the end of this playlist. Oh, you've got 1 more song to the end of this playlist. So it helps you really organize your time in that way as well.
Right, yeah, that's so amazing actually. So it's a very, you can be very, very strategic with it in terms of how you try to moderate your headspace, I guess, in terms of like what it is that you're doing.
Yeah. And just to add on to that, the more that you use the playlist for that specific function, the more that your brain is going to start to learn, oh, when this playlist is on, that's when I'm going into my energized work mode. So the more that you do it, the more effective it starts to become.
So the playlist itself can actually, I guess, in a sense, become almost a trigger for that state, that focus state that you need to enter into.
Yeah, exactly right.
I
Exactly
love
right.
that. I love that.
Becomes part of the ritual. Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. Let me know in the comments. And as ever, subscribe, like the video, hit the notification bell so that you don't miss out on future content, and I will see you soon.